Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 28th of May of 2026. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, during the previous 24 hours the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation leaked this map. We have already discussed this map during the previous video. Here we can see, according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the positions of Russians by the end of the 9th of April of 2026, so almost a month and a half ago. And as you can see, here we have a huge gap between the 9th of April of 2026 and maps of different mappers as of the end of the 28th of May of 2026. Later, another interesting video was published by different sources, and here we can see basically the comparison, but maybe not even the comparison, but the synchronization of the current situation by the end of the 28th of April of 2026 with the situation by the end of the 9th of April of 2026. So these are the differences, this is the gap, these are the changes between the 9th of April and the 28th of May, and as you can see, these changes are very, very huge. So once again, let's discuss in details. According to information we have, by the end of 9th of April of 2026, the Russians had captured almost completely the western Zaporizhia direction, and the Russians established control almost over every single square kilometer along the river of Konska. So this blue line is the river of Konska, and by the 9th of April, this river of Konska was something like the line of combat contact. But somewhere during the second half of April, the Ukrainians began their counteroffensive operation, according to information from the open source, and as a result of this counter-offensive operation, the Ukrainians basically managed to recapture almost everything that the group of forces Dnipro captured during the Russian offensive operation. So this is the situation in this area. As of the city of Orikhiv, we have, according to the 9th of April of 2026, up to 30 or 40% of the settlement had been already captured by the armed forces of the Russian Federation. But since the beginning of the special military operation, we haven't received even a single video that can confirm or that can prove that the Russians indeed either answered or have strong control over the southern part, over the part to the south of railways. As of the city of Orikhiv itself, and as of the 28th of May, we received just a video published by pro-Russian sources, and in this video we can see how Russians were bombing the northern parts of the city of Orikhiv with aviation. Lots of explosions, as you can see, were recorded. The Russians are reducing the city of Orikhiv till ruins. Here we have the same episode but from another angle, and one thing is clear, that maybe the Russians indeed have positions through the southern part of the city of Orikhiv, but one thing is clear, that currently there are very heavy clashes for the northern parts, and the Russians are reducing till ruins the northern parts with the purpose to complete the battle for the city. Another important situation is that these days, starting probably from May of 2026, the armed forces of the Russian Federation began publishing lots of updates about the situation in the area of the villages of Yurkovka and Tavriska. So as you can see, during these months, the Russians bombed these two cities significantly. Lots of videos were published from this area. In this video, we can see how Russians were bombing the central part of the settlement of Tavriska with aviation. Here we have a fresh video that was published this morning. Here we can see how some warehouses or temporary deployment points of the armed forces Ukraine were reduced to ruins as a result of FAB attack. Here we have more strikes carried out by Russians during the previous 24 hours. This video was published just today. Here we have more explosions through the northern parts of the settlement, and here we can see more FABs that were used by Russians to attack positions of the armed forces Ukraine. But saying the truth, when talking about this video, maybe not, this is not even a FAB, but maybe this is a strike, a hit of a heavy TOS flamethrower system by the name of TOS, and lots of explosions were recorded through the village of Yurivka. So as of now, we don't have even a single video that can confirm that the Russians entered these villages, which most likely means that there are no Russians there. But the number of these strikes that were published just since the beginning of this month of May of 2026 means that the Russians most likely began preparation began bombing these settlements using significant number of strikes of FABs, just with one purpose: to prepare these two settlements before the beginning of a ground operation in this area as well. As for the eastern Zaporizhia direction, the Russians during the previous days managed to improve their position significantly. And this is the way how the map has been adjusted since the 20th of May of 2026. And just during the previous week, the Russians, according to information we have improved their position significantly. So once again, this is the end of the 21st of May of 2026. This is the moment when probably everything started. We start receiving the first updates that sabotage and reconnaissance groups managed to break through Ukraine's defense. As of the end of the 22nd of May, the Russians captured the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa. As of the 23rd of May, the Russians improved their positions through Vozdvizhivka. As of the 25th of May, the Russians captured the settlement of the settlement of Dobropassovo. We discussed this breakthrough several days ago. And as of the end of the 28th of May of 2026, the Russians captured the settlement of Vozdvizhivka and managed to improve their positions around the settlement of Rizdvyanka. So we can say that the most fortified and well-prepared eastern Zaporizhia defense line has collapsed as a result of the Russian offensive. And now from this line, with these villages and cities and towns like Rizdvyanka, Vozdvizhivka, Verkhnya Tersa, and most likely Gulyai-Polska in coming days, the Russians will continue offensive operation both in the direction of the northeastern parts of the Orikhiv agglomeration. The Russians will continue offensive operation towards the settlement of Tavriska and Yurkovka, and of course from these positions the Russians will continue offensive operation towards the city of Zaporizhia itself. And you know that today we received another very interesting detail. You know that today the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, left Ukraine. First of all, Zelensky leaves Ukraine always before massive attacks, so which means that the fact that he left the territory of Ukraine today means that most likely in coming 48 hours the Russians will carry out a massive attack with hundreds of missiles and thousands, maybe even of drones. So Zelensky left Ukraine, and today he was recorded on the territory of Sweden, where he had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Sweden. And according to information we have, Sweden has promised to deliver the first 16 Gripen fighters jets to Ukraine early next year, so at the beginning of 2027. And the most important thing, that Sweden is going to provide not just aircrafts, but missiles to these aircrafts. This is exactly what Zelensky needs. And according to information we have, these missiles are able to attack targets within a distance of 100 kilometers. And different experts stated that the main purpose of these missiles would be to create a gap, to create a buffer zone between the Russian aviation, the Russian Su-34s, Su-30s, and Su-35s, and the cities of Ukraine. And probably, we need to understand that the Russians most likely will not be able to take under complete control the city of Zaporizhia this year, but most likely by the end of 2026, the Russians most likely would be able to approach the city of Zaporizhia and to take under complete control, something like this. So the Russians will get to the situation when the Russians would be able to start using their aviation, their aircrafts on the distance of 70 or 80 kilometers from the city itself. And we need to understand that the city of Zaporizhia is going to be the biggest city since the beginning of the special military operation that the Russians most likely would try to take under complete control. And this is not just the city. These are like hundreds of Ugledars, hundreds of Azovstal, hundreds of the most fortified areas that the Russians have ever seen since the beginning of the special military operation, maybe even since the beginning of the Soviet Union collapsed. And of course, the only way how the Russians are able, if the Ukrainians, if Zelensky, Ukraine, the Western countries decide to fight for the city of Zaporizhia till the last square kilometer, till the last building, of course, the only way for the Russians to take the city under complete control is to use aviation. Not just to use aviation, but basically to reduce every single square meter to ruins. And of course, if this battle, and most likely this battle starts at the beginning of 2027, and as you can see before this battle begins, the Ukrainians will deploy their Gripen fighter jets, and these jets, most likely, the main purpose of these jets would be to fly to the northwest and to the west of the city of Zaporizhia with the purpose to destroy and to bring down Russian aircrafts of Su model, Su-30, Su-34s, with the purpose not to allow the Russians to use aviation, with the purpose to bomb and reduce the city of Zaporizhia to ruin. So as you can see, everything is calculated by the Western partners and allies of Ukraine, and as we can see, everything goes according to some scenario and according to some schedule. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction. During the previous days, we were talking a lot about the situation in this area, and we were calculating the approximate number of square kilometers, or the approximate number of persons that the Russians established control over. And today we have significant changes, and it seems that now the Russians control up to 45% of the city of Konstantinovka, and the defenses of Konstantinovka continue collapsing. So these are the changes on the ground since the 20th of May of 2026, when this phase of offensive operation of the Battle of Konstantinovka began. So this is the end of the 24th of May. The Russians captured the most southern parts of the settlement along M32 road. By the end of the 25th of May, the Russians improved their positions both through the western and the eastern flanks of the city. By the end of the 26th of May, the Russians improved their positions once again through the flanks. By the end of the 27th of May, the Russians continue improving their positions through the flanks, and by the end of the 28th of May of 2026, the situation has been changed significantly. We have adjusted the map significantly, and we have covered completely the southern and the southwestern parts of the city, and probably the western parts of the city of Konstantinovka. And these changes, as you can see, the changes are significant, were made based on the videos that were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. And in these videos we can see how Ukrainians were bombing Russians with artillery through the central part of the settlement. So in this video, for example, in this very episode, we can see how Ukrainians were attacking this depot, this probably some building along railways in the central part of the city, which means that these territories were under Russian control when they were attacked. In the final episode, we could see how the Ukrainians were attacking these facilities. So as you can see, the Russians captured the central part of the city, the most important territory, with these barracks, with these buildings, with this railway infrastructure, which means that the Russians have strong control over the central part. Maybe there are still pockets of resistance to the south of the central part, but it seems that these pockets have no value right now, and probably the Ukrainians who are currently located in these pockets probably have no chances for evacuation, maybe during the night period of time. And most likely, if there are chances for evacuation and there are chances to escape this encirclement, obviously the Ukrainians will try to do this upcoming night between the 28th and the 29th of May of 2026. Now the Russians most likely during the next several days will try to take under complete control the Metalurg micro-district, the 81st quarter and the 92nd block of the city of Konstantinovka. We are talking about the eastern and the central parts of the city. And when these micro-districts and blocks are being taken by Russians, then we can say that the city of Konstantinovka collapsed completely, without any chances for the armed forces of Ukraine to restore control over the territory. And then the Russians will begin the final battle for the city, for the northern and the northwestern parts. And I'm not sure whether the Ukrainians are able to show any resistance in this area. And meanwhile, the Russians began bombing and attacking this territory with aviation. Residential parts of the city of Konstantinovka is under very heavy fire. As you can see, the Russians began preparation this territory before the beginning of the battle for this area. Another important thing is that a very high anomaly number of clashes and updates were recorded through the western Chasiv Yar direction. So these days the Russians published lots of videos from the area of the villages of Podolska, Stenki and Virolubovka. So lots of updates, lots of videos were published of how Russians using FPV drones were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area, and it seems that now the Russians are going to intensify their offensive operation through this direction as well, with the purpose to establish complete control over this territory and to maintain the line of the western Chasiv Yar front line with the city of Konstantinovka itself. So it seems that the battle for the city of Drushkovka will start much earlier than expected, and the battle for the Slaviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration will also start much earlier than anyone could expect. As for the Slaviansk direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded through this area, but it seems that in coming days, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm complete control over the settlement of Alexandrovka, it seems, and I have a feeling that the Alexandrovka, the settlement of Alexandrovka, will fall very, very soon. Now let's talk about the northern directions. During the previous 24 hours, lots of very interesting updates were recorded. The Russians continue attacking the logistics and warehouses and ammo depots of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area, trying to reduce the Ukraine's capabilities of supporting their forces through the northeastern parts of the Kharkiv region. And as of the most northeastern part, according to the Minister of Defense and according to the group of forces north, the Russians during the previous 24 hours have established complete control over the settlement of Novoselivka. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates according to these reports. As of the end of the 27th of May, we haven't received proofs that there are video proofs I'm talking about, but we have reports published by both by the Minister of Defense and the group of forces north. Another important thing that the Russians intensified their aviation strikes in this area. Lots of videos were published how the Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the territory and around the settlement of Kolodizne. Another important thing, the Russians, by the fact that they managed to take under complete control the settlement of Novoselivka, the Russians managed to encircle and to cut from the mainland the contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine between the villages of Mitrofanovka and Petroivanovka, which means that in coming days the Russians most likely would be able to take these territories also under complete control and to force the Ukrainians to fall back. So the Kharkiv offensive operation, as we can see, is gaining momentum. In the northern Kharkiv direction, the clashes are intensifying around the settlement of Kozacha Lopan. And telling the truth, today we can say that the battle for the city of Kozacha Lopan has begun. For example, these days we received lots of updates. Yesterday, the Russians stated that they captured the settlement of Granov, and today we received additional videos, and according to them, the Russians also captured the settlement of Shevchenka. In these videos, we can see how the Ukrainians of the 58th Motorized Brigade were attacking Russians with FPV drones in the settlements of Granov and Shevchenka, and based on these episodes, we have adjusted the map. So, which means that the battle for Kozacha Lopan begins, and the Russians most likely are not going to stop, which means that the Kharkiv direction, the Russians attacked the city of Kharkiv at least from two areas, from the north and from the east. As for the Sumy direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special has been recorded. The situation is a very critical one. Zelensky is trying to get additional aircrafts and, of course, missiles to them. And as we can see, according to information we have, the Russians still haven't attacked the city of Kyiv with missiles and drones that the Russians, according to the ultimatum that was issued by Russians several days ago. As of the end of the 28th of May of 2026, despite the statements that were made by Kaja Kallas that the United States of America left the city of Kyiv, we're talking about embassy. Today we received the report that the US embassy in Kyiv clarified that it remains open and its operations have not changed, despite reports of evacuation due to the threat of systematic strikes. And telling the truth, we need to understand that the European politicals, diplomats and the US diplomats are not able to leave the city of Kyiv. Just imagine yourself the heart of Ukraine, the city of Kyiv, with a population of more than 2-3 millions. If these embassies announce that they decide to evacuate their diplomatic missions, the next thing that will happen in this area is that the Ukrainians the civilians and population of Kyiv will begin doing the same. They will start evacuating. They will start evacuation, which means that this can lead to huge traffic, to blockade of roads and so on. This situation can paralyze the city of Kyiv right before the Russian massive attack. And the last time when the city of Kyiv was paralyzed, the Russians captured the settlements of Irpin, Bucha, and at the beginning of the special military operation. Maybe the Russians are trying to do the same. Maybe the Russians are trying to create a total chaos and mass through the city of Kyiv with this evacuation announcement. And if it happens, the most important thing, that military forces would not be able to act fast to maneuver through the city, and this will allow the Russians probably to repeat the Gostomel offensive operation. So everything is possible. Who knows? Who knows what is going to happen next? And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.